Jake Murphy stepped off the transport shuttle and took one long look at the Galactic Defense Academy. It looked like someone had let a committee of aliens design a college campus after watching exactly one human sci-fi movie from the 70s. Lots of chrome. Lots of inexplicable floating platforms. And was that building shaped like a giant Lorsuen? A helix? He squinted. Yeah, definitely a helix. Because of course it was. Cadet Murphy, human designation, Earth origin, reporting for duty, he said to the reception drone, which beeped at him in what he assumed was acknowledgement but honestly could have been an insult. His translator implant was still adjusting, and everything sounded vaguely sarcastic. Which, to be fair, matched his energy perfectly. The drone projected a holographic map that immediately gave him a headache. 7 dimensions of directions. Fantastic. He was going to be late to his first class because the bathroom existed in a parallel timeline or whatever. You are assigned to Training Squadron Theta 9, the drone announced. Commander Thronic will be your instructor. Please proceed to Bay 17, subsection Gamma, Timeline Primary. Timeline Primary. Got it, Jake muttered, shouldering his bag. As opposed to Timeline Secondary where I'm already graduated and drinking on a beach somewhere. He found Bay 17 after only 2 wrong turns and 1 awkward encounter with a species that apparently communicated through interpretive dance. The training bay was massive, easily the size of 3 football fields, with equipment that ranged from recognizable, like weight benches, to completely baffling, like the glowing ring suspended in mid-air that occasionally screamed. Standing at attention in the center of the bay were his new squad mates. One was a blob. There was really no other way to describe it. A quivering, translucent, roughly person-shaped blob that seemed way too excited to be standing still. It kept bouncing slightly on whatever it had, for feet. The other was a mountain, easily 8 feet tall, covered in dark gray scales, with arms like tree trunks, and a face that looked like it had been chiseled from granite by someone who was really angry about something. But the eyes were wide and nervous, darting around like a kid on their first day of kindergarten. New human cadet arriving, the blob announced in a high-pitched, enthusiasm-soaked voice. Hello, I am Pip. Pip is me, very excited to be training with human. Heard many things. Are the things true? Do you really have only 2 arms? So strange, so interesting. Yeah, Jake said, raising both arms in demonstration. Just the 2. We make it work. The mountain cleared his throat, which sounded like gravel in a cement mixer. I am Krell. He rumbled softly, almost apologetically. Of the Gorath warrior clans. It is an honor to serve alongside you, human Jake. Just Jake is fine, big guy, Jake said, genuinely charmed by the nervous giant. First day for all of us? Yes, first day. Pip jiggled enthusiastically. Very first day at Academy, beginning of glorious military careers. Will be amazing, will make families proud, will not die horribly in space combat. That is the hope, Krell whispered. Before Jake could respond, the bay door slammed open with unnecessary force, and in strode the most extra alien Jake had ever seen. He was reptilian, about 7 feet tall, with 4 arms that he somehow made dramatic use of all at once. His scales were a deep purple, and he wore enough medals on his chest to probably cause back problems. His eyes, all 3 of them, swept over the assembled cadets with the kind of disappointment usually reserved for parents reviewing report cards. I am Commander Thronic, he announced, his voice booming across the bay. For the next 6 cycles, you will belong to me. Your lives, your training, your very essence will be shaped by my instruction. I have trained warriors for 47 stellar rotations. I have fought in campaigns across 17 systems. I have seen empires rise and fall, and now, I have the distinct honor of attempting to forge you, a collection of barely adequate specimens, into something resembling soldiers. He paused, clearly expecting some kind of reaction. Pip vibrated with attention. Krell looked like he might cry. Jake yawned. Thronic's middle eye fixed on Jake. Am I boring you, human? Little bit, Jake admitted. No offense, Commander, but I've heard the drill sergeant's speech before. Different planet, same energy. You're gonna break us down, build us back up, tell us we're nothing, then tell us we're everything. Make us run until we puke, probably make us do team trust exercises. How am I doing? All 3 of Thronic's eyes narrowed. And you believe you understand military training because your primitive world has armies? I mean, we've been doing the war thing for a while now, Jake said. Pretty good at it, actually. It's basically our main hobby, that and reality television. Pip made a sound like a giggle mixed with a hiccup. Krell looked horrified. Thronic's mandibles clicked together, which Jake's translator helpfully informed him was probably annoyance. Then perhaps you will appreciate what comes next, Cadet Murphy. This academy represents the finest military tradition in the galaxy. You will learn to use weapons that can shatter planets. You will train with technology that bends the very fabric of space-time. You will be tested against challenges that would make your Earth conflicts look like, what is the human term? Playground disputes. Recess scuffles, Jake offered helpfully. Silence, Thronic snapped. But Jake could swear one of those eyes had a tiny glimmer of amusement. Tomorrow, we begin your education in earnest, and I will take particular pleasure in showing you, human, that your species has much, much to learn. Jake grinned. Looking forward to it, sir. As Thronic swept out of the bay with theatrical flair, Pip bounced over to Jake. You are very brave, or very foolish, possibly both. This will be interesting training cycle. Definitely both. Jake agreed. Krell leaned down, his voice a worried rumble. Perhaps it would be wise not to antagonize the commander? On the first day? Just, a thought. Jake clapped the massive alien on his arm, or at least as high as he could reach. Don't worry, Krell. I got a good feeling about this place. He didn't mention that his good feelings usually preceded something exploding, breaking, or catching fire. Sometimes all three. First day at space school. This was going to be fun. The next morning arrived too early, and with too much gravity. Apparently, the Academy rotated through different planetary gravitational settings for training purposes, and today was Heavy World Day. Jake felt like someone had strapped weights to his soul. This is character building, he muttered, dragging himself to the training bay where Pip was somehow still bouncing, apparently unaffected by the extra gravity. And Krell looked even more miserable than usual, his massive frame hunched under the increased weight. Good morning, cadets. Having too half the day, Pip chirped. Beautiful day for learning, beautiful day for not dying. Gravity is very heavy today, yes? It's fantastic. Jake groaned. I love feeling like I weigh 400 pounds. Really adds to the experience. Commander Thronic entered precisely on time, because of course he did, looking completely unaffected by the gravity. He moved with the kind of precision that suggested he did everything in his life with unnecessary drama, including probably buttering toast. Today, Thronic announced, all four arms spreading wide, you will witness the pinnacle of galactic military technology. Today, you will understand why the Galactic Defense Force has maintained peace across 10,000 worlds for 10,000 cycles. Today, cadets, you will behold the Zarathian battle armor. He pressed a control on his wrist, and a platform rose from the floor with a hiss of hydraulics and what Jake was pretty sure were actual theatrical smoke machines. On the platform stood a suit of armor that looked like someone had taken a medieval knight's outfit and forced it to have a baby with a spaceship. It was impressive, Jake had to admit. Sleek black material that seemed to absorb light, covered in geometric patterns that glowed faintly blue. The design was elegant, intimidating, and probably cost more than his entire planet's GDP. The Zarathian battle armor, Thronic continued, circling the suit like a game show host, revealing a prize, represents the culmination of 73 civilizations' combined technological achievement. Its quantum crystalline matrix has never, not once in 10,000 years of continuous warfare, been penetrated by any known weapon. Never? Pip gasped, appropriately awed. Never, Thronic confirmed, warming to his subject. He was really in his element now, one hand dramatically gesturing while the other three emphasized different points. It has withstood direct hits from plasma cannons that burn at temperatures exceeding stellar cores. It has survived gravitational weapons that can crush starships into singularities. It has endured exposure to antimatter detonations, quantum disruptors, and molecular destabilizers. Krell raised one massive hand nervously. Commander, forgive me, but did the armor truly survive a supernova, as the promotional materials claimed? Thronic's mandibles clicked in what might have been pride. Ah, yes. The Battle of the Kelthro System. The armor was worn by Champion Vex Tal when the star went critical. He stood on the surface of the third planet as the stellar shockwave approached. The armor not only protected him but allowed him to walk, calmly and without injury, to his extraction shuttle. The footage is required viewing for all first-year tactical courses. That's either really impressive or really stupid, Jake said, scrolling through his datapad. He'd been looking up Earth's greatest military moments, and was currently reading about the time someone had weaponized a boat full of explosives. Humans were wild. All three of Thronic's eyes swiveled to Jake. You have commentary, Cadet Murphy. I mean, standing on a planet while the star explodes seems like poor tactical planning, is all I'm saying. Running away is also a valid military strategy. We're big fans of it on Earth. Live to fight another day and all that. The champion was completing a critical mission, Thronic said coldly. Retreat was not an option. Sure, Jake said, still not looking up from his datapad. I'm just saying, back home, we'd probably have just not been on the exploding planet in the first place. But hey, different strategies for different species. Pip made a strangled sound that might have been suppressed laughter. Krell looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Thronic drew himself up to his full height. Perhaps you fail to grasp the significance of what stands before you. Human. This armor has protected warriors in conflicts that make your entire species' military history look like primitive creatures hitting each other with rocks. We did do a lot of that, Jake admitted. Cheerfully. Still do, actually. Rocks are pretty effective. We just throw them really fast now. The armor, Thronic pressed on, his voice taking on the quality of someone determined to finish their presentation, despite interruptions, utilizes a quantum crystalline matrix that redistributes kinetic and thermal energy across 17 dimensions simultaneously. When struck, the impact is not absorbed but rather diffused across parallel spacetime configurations, rendering the wearer effectively invulnerable. 17 dimensions, Jake repeated. Wow, that's 16 more than we usually work with. Fancy. It is not fancy, Cadet Murphy. It is the difference between life and death on the battlefield. This armor is rated impenetrable. That word means cannot be penetrated, cannot be breached, cannot be compromised by any known weapon system in the galaxy. Jake finally looked up from his datapad. His eyes had that particular gleam that people who knew him recognized as a warning sign. Impenetrable, huh? Correct, Thronic said, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Like, nothing can get through it? That is the definition of impenetrable, yes. Not plasma, not gravity weapons, not antimatter, not any quote-unquote known weapon system in the galaxy. Your repetition of facts does not change them, human. Jake set down his datapad and smiled. It was not a reassuring smile. It was the smile of someone who had just thought of something either brilliant or catastrophically stupid, and in Jake's case, those two things tended to overlap significantly. Mind if I test that? He asked. The training bay went dead silent. Even the equipment seemed to stop humming. Pip stopped bouncing for the first time since Jake had met him. Krell's eyes went even wider, which seemed physically impossible. Thronic's mandibles slowly spread in what Jake really hoped was amusement, and not the alien equivalent of baring teeth before an attack. I beg your pardon? The armor, Jake said, standing up and stretching, doing his best to look casual despite the heavy gravity trying to crush him into the floor. You're saying nothing can penetrate it. I'm curious if that's, actually true. Or if it's more like marketing. False advertising is illegal on Earth. Well, technically illegal. We do it anyway, but still. You wish to attempt to damage the Zorathian battle armor, Thronic said slowly. With what, exactly? Your bare hands? The power of human audacity? Nah, I was thinking something a little more practical, Jake said. You guys have an armory here, right? Let me grab something from there. Take a shot at your impenetrable armor, and we'll see what happens. Scientific method and all that. Hypothesis, experiment, conclusion. We're big on science. This is very bad idea, Krell whispered. Very bad idea. This is amazing idea, Pip countered, vibrating with excitement. I wish to see this. Human Jake will test the armor. This is why humans are interesting species. Thronic regarded Jake with all three eyes, and for a long moment, the commander said nothing. Then, slowly, his mandibles spread further into what could only be called a predatory grin. Very well, Cadet Murphy, he said. I accept your challenge. You will select a weapon from our armory, and you will attempt to damage the Zorathian battle armor. And when you fail, as you inevitably will, perhaps you will have learned a valuable lesson about respecting technology you do not understand. And if I succeed? Jake asked. Thronic's laugh boomed across the training bay. Then, human, I will personally recommend you for advanced weapons research, but I assure you, that will not be necessary. Jake's grin widened. We'll see about that, Commander. We'll definitely see about that. Within 15 minutes, word had spread through the entire academy. Apparently, the prospect of watching a human attempt to break supposedly unbreakable alien armor was the most entertainment the cadets had seen in cycles. The training bay was now packed with spectators from at least 30 different species, all chattering in various frequencies that Jake's translator was struggling to keep up with. I am not certain this was wise, Krell murmured, hovering near Jake like a nervous bodyguard. Commander Thronic has reputation for holding grudges, very long grudges. Generational grudges. I'm putting all my meal credits on human Jake, Pip announced to anyone who would listen, which was apparently everyone. A Verpaxian cadet with too many tentacles was apparently running a betting pool, and from what Jake could see, the odds were not in his favor, roughly 300 to 1 against. You should probably diversify your investments, buddy, Jake told Pip. No, I believe in human ingenuity. Also, 300 to 1 payout would be very nice. Could buy many dessert rations. Commander Thronic stood beside the armor, all 4 arms crossed, looking like someone who was about to enjoy proving a point. Several other instructors had joined him, including a crystalline being that Jake's datapad identified as Professor Zinthar, head of Advanced Defensive Technologies, and a floating brain in a jar named Dean Quelix, who apparently ran the entire Tactical Sciences department. This should be educational, Zinthar chimed, her voice like wind through crystal. The human species is still quite new to galactic standard warfare. Perhaps witnessing the superiority of established technology will be instructive. Or hilarious, added a voice from the crowd. Either way, worth watching. Jake made his way to the armory access terminal, Thronic following at a measured pace that somehow managed to be both casual and menacing. The armory was impressive, he had to admit. Walls lined with weapons that looked like they belonged in a museum, a video game, or a nightmare. Possibly all 3. There were energy weapons in every color imaginable. Plasma rifles that hummed with barely contained power. Something labeled as a molecular disruption cannon that Jake was pretty sure violated several laws of physics just by existing. A rack of what appeared to be swords made of solid light. Even a few projectile weapons, though these were clearly relegated to the back corner like embarrassing relics from a more primitive time. Choose your weapon, human, Thronic said, gesturing magnanimously to the entire arsenal. Select whatever you believe will accomplish your impossible task. Jake walked past the plasma rifles, past the energy cannons, past the quantum destabilizers and the gravity hammers and the exotic matter projectors. He headed straight for the back corner, where the ballistic weapons gathered dust. Oh no, Krell breathed. He is choosing the primitive weapons. This is very bad. This will not work. We are all going to be embarrassed. Jake picked up what looked like a standard kinetic rifle. Nothing fancy. Magazine fed, probably fired some kind of solid projectile, looked like it might have been designed sometime in the last century of galactic history. It was, by the standards of everything else in the armory, completely boring. The crowd actually laughed. That is your choice? Thronic asked, not even bothering to hide his amusement. A kinetic projectile weapon? Cadet Murphy, the armor has withstood impacts that would vaporize your planet. What makes you think a simple bullet, traveling at merely supersonic speeds, would even scratch the surface? Oh. I don't, Jake said cheerfully, checking the rifle's action. Not with standard ammunition anyway. He turned to the armory technician, a 6-armed creature whose name tag read Grix. Hey, Grix, you guys stock any tungsten carbide rounds? Or maybe depleted uranium if you've got it? Grix's multiple eyes blinked in confusion. Tungsten carbide? Why would we stock such primitive materials for projectile weapons? These rifles are typically loaded with compressed steel slugs for training purposes. They are considered antiquated even by those standards. But you have the materials, right? Jake pressed. Like, in your fabrication labs? Tungsten, carbide? The basic stuff? Well, yes, of course, Grix said. We have fabricators that can produce virtually any material configuration, but I do not understand why you would. Great. Can you fab me up, say, 5 rounds? Standard rifle caliber for this weapon, but solid tungsten carbide core. High density, maximum mass. Pack it tight. Grix looked at Thronic, who made a gesture that clearly meant, humor the human. With a shrug of multiple shoulders, Grix moved to a fabrication console and began inputting specifications. This is fascinating, Professor Zinthar observed. The human is requesting denser projectiles, Does he believe mass will succeed where advanced technology has failed? Apparently, Thronic said. This will be an excellent demonstration of why most species have moved beyond such crude kinetic weapons. The armor's quantum crystalline matrix diffuses force across multiple dimensions. Adding mass simply means there is more force to diffuse. The end result remains the same, zero penetration. Jake accepted the fabricated rounds from Grix, who looked at them like they were historical curiosities. These are very dense, Grix noted. Very heavy for their size. Strange human preferences. We like things that go fast and hit hard, Jake said, loading the rounds into the rifle's magazine with practiced ease. It's kind of our thing. The crowd had grown larger, and someone had apparently started a live stream, because cadets were checking their datapads and more people kept arriving. Jake was pretty sure he'd just become either a legend or a cautionary tale, possibly both. The terms of the test, Thronic announced loudly, clearly enjoying his role as ringmaster, are simple. Cadet Murphy will fire his chosen weapon at the Zorathian battle armor from a distance of 50 meters, standard range evaluation distance. If he manages to cause any damage whatsoever to the armor, I will acknowledge the achievement. If, as expected, the armor remains pristine, Cadet Murphy will accept that perhaps human weapons technology is not as formidable as human confidence, and write a 10-page essay on respecting superior alien technology. Jake guessed. 20 pages, Thronic corrected. Single-spaced. Worth it, Jake said. The armor was positioned on a reinforced stand, and Jake was directed to the firing line. The rifle felt comfortable in his hands, familiar in a way that the exotic energy weapons never would. There was something honest about ballistic weapons. Point, squeeze, physics does the rest. This is very exciting, Pip announced, having positioned himself in the front row of spectators. Also very terrifying, but mostly exciting. I have wagered entire month of meals on this. That was not smart, small one, rumbled a Croaxian soldier nearby. We will see. Pip jiggled optimistically. We will see. Jake settled into a shooting stance, rifle shouldered, and took a moment to line up his shot. The training bay had gone remarkably quiet. Even the floating brain in a jar had stopped humming. Before I shoot, Jake said, not lowering the rifle. Anyone want to take a guess what makes humans dangerous in combat? Your pack-bonding instincts? Someone called out. Your persistence hunting evolution? Another voice suggested. Your inexplicable ability to befriend anything? Pip offered. All good guesses, Jake said. But nah, it's simpler than that. See, most species in the Distor 4 galaxy advanced technology-wise before they perfected the basics. You went from throwing rocks to plasma weapons without really exploring the middle ground. But humans? He grinned. We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of throwing things really, really hard. We got good at it. Like, scary good at it. Fascinating lecture, Thronic said dryly. Perhaps you could demonstrate this alleged expertise? Sure thing, Commander, Jake said. Oh, one more thing. Anyone standing directly behind the armor might want to move. Just a thought. A few cadets nervously shuffled to the sides. Jake took a breath, let it half out, and squeezed the trigger. The sound was almost disappointing. A simple crack, loud but not impressive compared to the whine of energy weapons or the thunderous discharge of plasma cannons. Just a basic gunshot, the kind humans had been making for centuries. For a fraction of a second, nothing seemed to happen. Then everyone saw it. The tungsten carbide round, traveling at roughly twice the speed of sound and carrying all the kinetic energy that mass and velocity could provide, hit the quantum crystalline matrix of the Zorathian battle armor dead center in the chest plate. The armor, which had survived plasma cannons and gravitational weapons and antimatter and supernovas, did something it had never done before in 10,000 years of galactic warfare. It cracked. Not just cracked, the round punched clean through the front of the chest plate. Continued. Through whatever 17-dimensional quantum nonsense was supposed to stop it. Exited out the back of the armor, and embedded itself in the reinforced wall behind the stand with a solid thunk that echoed through the stunned silence of the training bay. Jake lowered the rifle and looked at the smoking hole in the supposedly impenetrable armor. Huh, he said. Would you look at that? The silence in the training bay lasted approximately 3 seconds before all hell broke loose. Impossible. Professor Zinthar shrieked, her crystalline form literally vibrating with disbelief. The quantum matrix should have diffused the impact across 17 dimensions. Dean Quellix's brain jar was rotating frantically. 17 dimensions! The mathematics are infallible. Commander Thronic just stood there, all four arms hanging limp at his sides, mandibles opening and closing without sound. He looked like someone had just told him gravity was optional and then proven it by floating away. Meanwhile, the betting pool exploded into chaos. "I am rich in dessert rations. I am rich in dessert rations." Pip was bouncing so high he was nearly touching the ceiling despite the heavy gravity. "So many rations, I will have sugar coma for weeks. Best day ever." Krell had fainted. Just straight up collapsed into an 8-foot pile of unconscious warrior. Nobody seemed to notice. Jake blew across the barrel of the rifle like he'd seen in old movies, even though that didn't actually do anything, and the barrel was definitely too hot to blow on safely. Style points mattered. "So here's the thing about quantum crystalline matrices," he said, addressing the stunned crowd like he was hosting a particularly violent episode of a science show. "They're great, really impressive. 17 dimensions of force diffusion? That's amazing. Genuinely. Gold star for alien engineering." He walked toward the armor, rifle resting casually on his shoulder. "But here's the problem. All that fancy diffusion requires time. Microseconds, sure, but time. The quantum calculations have to happen. The energy has to redistribute across your parallel spacetime configurations. The whole system has to react to the threat." He stopped in front of the armor, pointing at the perfectly round hole punched through both sides. "Tungsten carbide traveling at Mach 2.5 doesn't give you that time. It just doesn't care about your 17 dimensions. It exists in 3 dimensions, it's moving really fast, and it has one job: go forward. And when something that dense, moving that fast, hits something else?" He shrugged. "Physics doesn't negotiate. Physics doesn't care about your feelings or your quantum nonsense or your 10,000 years of military tradition. Physics just is." "But the calculations," Zinthar protested weakly. "The theoretical models all showed—" "Did your theoretical models account for stupid simple kinetic energy?" Jake asked. "Like, did anyone think to test what happens when you just throw something really hard at it?" The silence was answer enough. "We tested plasma weapons." Thronic finally managed, his voice hoarse. "Gravitational disruptors. Antimatter warheads. We tested everything." "Did you test a rock?" Jake asked. "A rock?" "Yeah, you know, dense object, high velocity, kinetic transfer. A rock. We've been killing each other with them since before we invented fire. Actually, we probably used rocks to make fire. Humans are really into rocks." He patted the rifle. "This is just a fancy rock thrower." "This is catastrophic," Dean Quelix muttered. "Do you understand what this means? The Zorathian battle armor is standard issue across 14 allied fleets. Thousands of warriors rely on this protection. And you're telling me a primitive kinetic weapon can defeat it?" "Defeat is a strong word," Jake said. "I'd say more like politely decline to be stopped by it." A Verpaxian instructor raised multiple tentacles. "But surely this is a fluke? The armor was perhaps defective? Maybe one test is insufficient data?" "Want me to shoot it again?" Jake offered. "I've got 4 more rounds." "No!" At least 7 voices shouted simultaneously. Jake held up his free hand in surrender. Okay. Just offering. Scientific rigor and all that." Professor Zinthar had moved to the armor and was examining the hole with instruments that beeped sadly. The molecular structure around the penetration point shows no signs of energy diffusion. The quantum matrix attempted to engage, but the projectile passed through before the system could properly initialize. "It's as if—" She trailed off, her crystalline form dimming. "As if we never actually tested it against the basics." Thronic finished quietly. "We were so focused on countering advanced weapons that we never considered something so primitive could be effective." "In your defense," Jake said, trying to be diplomatic for once in his life, "most species probably did move past kinetic weapons pretty quick. Humans just really committed to the bit. We've spent literally thousands of years figuring out how to make things go fast and hit hard. We have entire branches of mathematics dedicated to calculating trajectories. We name our weapons things like Big Bertha and the Punisher. We get emotionally attached to our guns." He gestured to the rifle. "This is actually one of our boring ones. We've got stuff that makes this look like a toy. Railguns that can hit targets from orbit. Tungsten rods dropped from satellites that hit with the force of nuclear weapons but are technically just falling rocks. We call them rods from God, which should tell you everything about human psychology." "Do not," Thronic said very carefully, "tell me about your nuclear weapons right now. I cannot handle that information at this moment. Fair enough. Pip had stopped bouncing and was now examining the hole in the armor with fascination. Human Jake made the unbreakable thing breakable. This is changing everything. Does this mean all alien armor is wrong? Not wrong, Jake corrected. Just optimized for the wrong threats. Your armor is fantastic against energy weapons and exotic physics. It's just bad against something that doesn't give it time to think. Krell groaned from the floor, slowly regaining consciousness. Did we die? Are we in the afterlife? Why does the afterlife have heavy gravity? You fainted, buddy, Jake told him. You missed the exciting part. I saw the exciting part, Krell whispered. That is why I fainted. Commander Thronic finally seemed to pull himself together, drawing up to his full height and squaring all four shoulders. Cadet Murphy. You have made your point. Most effectively, painfully effectively, the Galactic Defense Force will need to reassess our defensive technology doctrine immediately. Don't suppose this gets me out of that 20-page essay? Jake asked hopefully. It does not, Thronic said. But one of his eyes had a glimmer that might have been respect. However, it does earn you something else. From this moment forward, you are assigned to consult with our Weapons Development Division. Apparently, we have much to learn from human warfare methodology. Does this mean I have to explain grenades? Everyone, does this mean I have to explain grenades? Jake asked. Because grenades are going to blow your minds, literally and figuratively. One apocalyptic revelation at a time, Cadet Murphy, Thronic said tiredly. One at a time. Jake looked down at the rifle, then at the hole in the supposedly impenetrable armor, then at the crowd of stunned alien faces. So, he said cheerfully. Who wants to see what happens when I mention we've got bigger guns than this? Krell fainted again. The next 72 hours were absolute chaos. Jake had expected maybe a stern talking to about damaging expensive military equipment. What he got instead was being mobbed by every scientist, engineer, and military consultant in the academy, all demanding to know more about human kinetic weapons. But how does it work? A Phylaxian physicist asked for the 15th time, antennae quivering with confusion. You put the pointy bit facing forward and pull the trigger, Jake explained, again. It's not complicated, you're overthinking it. But the energy calculations, the quantum implications, surely there's advanced mathematics involved? I mean, yeah, ballistics is a whole field of study, but basically it's just gravity plus velocity equals bad day for whoever you're shooting at. The physicist looked like Jake had just explained advanced calculus using finger puppets. Meanwhile, the Galactic Defense Force brass had descended on the Academy like a swarm of very concerned, very high-ranking bees. A dozen admirals and generals from various species were currently in emergency session, presumably panicking about the fact that their entire defensive doctrine had a rock-sized hole in it. Literally, Jake had been invited to present to them, which was a polite way of saying he'd been dragged into a conference room full of military leadership who looked at him like he was either their savior or the harbinger of their destruction. Explain, railguns, demanded Admiral Krexoth, a cybernetically enhanced Throxian who apparently commanded the 3rd Defensive Fleet. Okay, so you know how magnets work. We understand electromagnetic acceleration, Krexoth interrupted. What we want to know is why you thought to weaponize it so extensively. Because it makes things go really fast? One, Jake offered. And fast things hit hard? This feels like circular reasoning. But I don't know what else to tell you. Humans see something. Wonder if we can throw it. Then wonder if we can throw it faster. Then build machines to throw it faster. Then put those machines in space. It's a journey. A Zeltharian general with too many eyes was reviewing data on a holographic display. According to your species' historical records, you have developed kinetic weapons capable of striking targets from orbital distances, with enough force to simulate nuclear detonations. Oh, you found the rods from God Project, Jake said. Yeah, those are fun. Just tungsten telephone poles dropped from satellites. No explosives, no radiation, just gravity and velocity doing their thing. We never used them in actual combat, but we definitely built them and did the math. Why? Asked another admiral, sounding genuinely distressed. Mostly because we could, Jake admitted. Also because international treaties banned space-based nuclear weapons but didn't say anything about space-based pointy metal sticks. Humans are big on loopholes. Dean Quellix's brain jar pulsed with what might have been a headache, if brains in jars could have headaches. This explains so much about why humanity's admission to the Galactic Council was so heavily debated. You're all insane. We prefer creatively violent, Jake said. Back in the training bay, things weren't much calmer. Commander Thronic had reluctantly become Jake's shadow, mainly to prevent other cadets from overwhelming him with questions. Pip had appointed himself as Jake's official hype man and was currently explaining to anyone who would listen about the wonders of kinetic energy. And then boom, the armor breaks. Like glass. Like cheap training drone. Human Jake is genius. I knew this. This is why I bet all meal credits. You got lucky, Blob, grumbled the Croaxian soldier who'd lost a significant amount in the betting pool. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, Pip chirped. Human philosopher said this. Or maybe alien philosopher. Translation uncertain. Krell had recovered from his second fainting spell and was nervously hovering near Jake like an anxious bodyguard. Perhaps we should discuss what other human weapons exist, so that I may prepare myself mentally, and know when to faint preemptively? Well, there's grenades, which are basically handheld explosions you throw at people. Jake started. Krell went pale, which was impressive for a species with gray scales. Landmines, which are explosions that wait patiently in the ground for someone to step on them. Claymore mines, which are directional explosions. Rocket launchers, which are just grenades that go farther. Oh, and we've got chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons, thermobaric weapons. Please stop. Krell whispered. I haven't even gotten to the creative stuff yet. There was this one time in ancient history we catapulted plague corpses over city walls. Or when we, please stop. Professor Zinthar had spent the last 3 days essentially having an existential crisis. She'd published 17 papers on the Zarathian battle armor's invulnerability, and now all of them needed massive revisions. She approached Jake with the air of someone going to their own execution. Cadet Murphy, I need to understand. What other human weapons should we be concerned about? Jake considered this. How much time do you have? Be concise. Okay. Short version. If it exists, we've probably figured out how to weaponize it. Rocks. Chemicals. Diseases. Atoms. Literally anything. We've weaponized sound, light, electricity, mathematics, information, and arguably even boredom. How do you weaponize boredom? Psychological warfare. Make the enemy so bored they surrender. It's a whole thing. Zinthar's crystalline form dimmed again. Your species terrifies me. We terrify ourselves sometimes, Jake admitted. It's part of our charm. The most surprising development came from Commander Thronic himself, who had gone from dismissive to grimly respectful over the course of 3 days. He found Jake in the training bay, watching Pip attempt to explain physics to a group of cadets using interpretive jiggling. Cadet Murphy, Thronic said formally, I owe you an apology. For what? For underestimating your species. For assuming that military tradition and technological advancement were the same thing. For forgetting that sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. He paused. Your people have been fighting each other for your entire history, have they not? Pretty much nonstop, yeah. We're not proud of it, but we're really good at it. It shows, Thronic said. We have had galactic peace for 10,000 years, perhaps too much peace. We have forgotten what real warfare looks like. Your species has not. Is that a compliment or an insult? Both, Thronic admitted. The Galactic Defense Force is officially requesting human military consultants. We need to redesign our armor, our tactics, our entire defensive philosophy, and apparently we need humans to show us how. No pressure or anything, Jake muttered. Indeed. Thronic's mandibles clicked in what Jake was learning to recognize as amusement. Try not to let it go to your head, Cadet. You still have that 20-page essay to write. About what? How I broke your unbreakable armor? About why respecting different approaches to problem-solving is essential in galactic cooperation, Thronic corrected. Due next cycle, Jake groaned. I punch a hole in your best armor and I still get homework? Welcome to the military, Cadet Murphy. Across the bay, Pip was now attempting to demonstrate kinetic energy by throwing himself at a wall repeatedly while Krell tried to stop him. Other cadets were giving Jake a wide berth, equal parts respect and fear, like he was a bomb that might go off. Which, Jake reflected, was probably accurate. Wait until they found out about actual bombs. This was going to be an interesting year. 3 weeks later, Jake Murphy had become simultaneously the most popular and most feared cadet in the Galactic Defense Academy's 500-year history. Popular because he'd exposed a critical flaw in military doctrine that could have gotten thousands of warriors killed in actual combat. Feared because everyone was now terrified of what else humans might casually reveal about galactic warfare. The armor incident, as it was now officially called in incident reports that Jake absolutely was not supposed to have read but totally did, had triggered a complete overhaul of defensive systems across 14 Allied fleets. Engineers were working overtime. Entire production lines were being retooled. Military budgets were being revised. All because one human cadet had asked, "Mind if I test that?" and then actually followed through. Jake was sitting in advanced tactical theory class, which was taught by Commander Thronic, and had recently added a new required unit titled The Human Factor in Modern Warfare. The irony was not lost on anyone. "Today," Thronic announced, "we will discuss how assumptions can be as dangerous as any weapon." The Zarathian armor was considered impenetrable for 10,000 years, not because it was actually impenetrable, but because no one thought to test it against kinetic weapons traveling at sufficient velocity with sufficient mass. He gestured to a holographic display, showing the infamous hole. Someone had turned it into a meme. It was currently circulating through every military academy in the galaxy, with captions like, "Impenetrable," "Aj, hasn't met humans yet," and "Quantum physics versus angry monkey with rock wins." Cadet Murphy demonstrated that sometimes the most primitive approach is the most effective. This is now required study for all tactical officers. Jake raised his hand. "Does this mean I can stop writing that essay?" "Does this mean I can stop writing that essay?" "No." "Worth a shot." Pip, who had used his dessert ration winnings to basically buy the Academy commissary, bounced in his seat. "Human Jake is famous. Everyone knows about the armor. I tell everyone I was there. I saw it happen. I am basically celebrity by association." "That's not how fame works," Krell rumbled softly, though he seemed less nervous than before. Apparently watching Jake casually revolutionize galactic warfare had been oddly confidence-building. "Though I must admit, having a human on our squad has made us quite popular. Or notorious," added a Drexelian cadet from across the room. "The betting pools for training exercises now have separate odds for whether or not Jake will break something important." "I broke one thing," Jake protested. "You broke the most important defensive technology in the galaxy," Thronic corrected. "One thing, but significant impact." Fair point. The real chaos had started when Jake had been invited, or more accurately commanded, to give a presentation to the Weapons Development Division about other human military innovations. He'd tried to start small, with grenades. But that had led to questions about explosives, which led to chemistry, which led to someone asking about nuclear weapons. Jake had made the mistake of being honest. The resulting panic had required intervention from 3 admirals and a dedicated trauma counselor for the weapons development team. Apparently, the concept of splitting atoms to create city-destroying explosions was not something most species had considered feasible or sane. Humans had done both, and then made the weapons smaller and more efficient. "They fit them on missiles?" a Verpaxian engineer had asked, tentacles trembling. "And submarines? And planes? And trucks? We got really into it for a while. Had enough to destroy our own planet several times over." "Why would you build more than enough to destroy your planet once?" "Honestly, great question. We're still not sure. It seemed important at the time." That meeting had ended early. Now, sitting in class while Thronic lectured about tactical adaptation, Jake noticed his datapad lighting up with a priority message. Official Galactic Defense Force header. That was either really good or catastrophically bad. He opened it. "Cadet Murphy, your presence is requested at the Strategic Innovation Committee meeting at 1400 hours. Your consultation on human weapons technology has been deemed essential for ongoing defensive modernization efforts. Attendance is mandatory. Do not bring kinetic weapons to the meeting." Jake raised his hand again. "Commander, I've been summoned to another committee meeting." Thronic's mandibles clicked. "Which one?" "Strategic Innovation Committee. They specifically noted I shouldn't bring kinetic weapons." "That is wise," Thronic said. "They are still recovering from your explanation of railguns. Dean Quelix required recalibration." "His brain jar was spinning really fast," Pip noted. "Very dizzy brain." "In fairness," Jake said, "electromagnetic acceleration isn't that complicated. You described a weapon that can fire projectiles at 7 kilometers per second from orbit with pinpoint accuracy. Thronic said flatly. That is very complicated, or very terrifying, possibly both. It's just physics. Physics, weaponized to a degree that most species considered neither possible nor desirable. Jake shrugged. We're achievers. Class continued, with Thronic outlining new protocols for testing defensive potential systems, which apparently now included, assume humans will find a way to break it, as a standard evaluation metric. Jake tried to pay attention, but kept getting distracted by messages from various military departments asking questions about human warfare. One message asked about chemical weapons, another about biological agents, a third, somewhat desperately, asked if humans had any weapons that weren't horrifying. Jake typed back, "We've got pointed sticks, those are pretty tame." The response came immediately, "How are the sticks pointed?" "We sharpen them." "With what?" "Other sharper things." There was a long pause, then, "Never mind." After class, as cadets filed out, Thronic gestured for Jake to stay behind. Pip and Krell waited by the door, Pip bouncing impatiently while Krell tried to look inconspicuous despite being 8 feet tall. "Cadet Murphy," Thronic said, his tone more serious than usual, "I want you to understand something. What you did with the armor was not just a stunt. You may have saved lives. Real lives. If that flaw had been discovered in actual combat, warriors would have died." "I was just curious," Jake said honestly. "Curiosity is a weapon unto itself," Thronic replied. "Your species questions everything, tests everything, refuses to accept that anything is truly impossible. It is infuriating. It is also exactly what the galaxy needs right now." He handed Jake a data chip. "This is from High Command. Your official assignment as a military consultant, with appropriate security clearances. You will continue your training as a cadet, but you will also advise on human warfare methodology." Jake took the chip, feeling the weight of what it represented. "They really want to know about all our weapons, don't they?" "They need to know," Thronic corrected. "Because if humanity has taught us anything, it is that the galaxy is far more dangerous than we believed, and we were unprepared." "For what it's worth," Jake said, "most of our weapons were designed to fight each other. We didn't build them for alien invasions or galactic warfare. We're just really committed to being prepared for absolutely everything. Including things that have never happened. Especially things that have never happened. We've got contingency plans for zombie apocalypses, robot uprisings, and alien invasions. None of those things are real, but we planned for them anyway." Thronic was quiet for a moment. "Are they not real, though, in a galaxy this large?" Jake paused. "Okay. Fair point. We might have been onto something." "Indeed." Thronic's mandibles spread in what Jake had learned was the alien equivalent of a smile. "Go to your meeting, cadet. Try not to cause any more existential crises. At least not today." "No promises, Commander." Jake left the classroom and joined Pip and Krell, who immediately peppered him with questions. "What did Commander want? Is it about the armor? Are you in trouble?" "Are we in trouble?" Krell's anxiety was palpable. "No trouble. Just more meetings about human weapons." "Will you tell them about nuclear bombs again?" Pip asked excitedly. That was very entertaining. So many shocked faces. "I'm thinking today I'll ease them into it. Maybe just conventional explosives. Work our way up to the apocalyptic stuff." "This is good strategy," Pip agreed. Slow reveal of horrifying information. Very considerate. They walked through the academy halls, past cadets who either waved enthusiastically or gave them a wide berth. Jake had gone from anonymous new cadet to the human who broke the unbreakable armor in less than a month. His datapad buzzed again. Another message, this one from the xenobiology department. Question. Do humans really bite opponents in combat? Historical records suggest yes, but this seems implausible. Jake typed back. Yeah, we've got teeth for a reason. Don't recommend it though. Very unsanitary. The response. We have made a terrible mistake. Allowing your species into the galactic community. Jake grinned. You're probably right, he muttered, as they approached the Strategic Innovation Committee meeting room, where a dozen high-ranking officers were waiting to be traumatized by more revelations about human warfare. Jake reflected on how his first month at the academy had gone. He'd broken unbreakable armor, caused multiple existential crises, crashed a betting pool, made Krell faint twice, turned Pip into a dessert ration mogul, and fundamentally altered galactic military doctrine. Not bad for a first month. He paused at the door, turned to his friends. Quick question. Should I mention that we've weaponized space debris, or is that too much for one meeting? Krell went pale. Please, for the love of all peaceful deities, do not. Definitely, tell them. Pip vibrated. This is best part of Academy. Learning about creative human violence. You two are no help, Jake said, but he was grinning. He opened the door to face a room full of nervous alien officers, all of whom looked at him like he was about to explain a new way the universe could end. Which, to be fair, he kind of was. Good afternoon, everyone, Jake said cheerfully. So, who wants to hear about kinetic bombardment and why we call them rods from God? The collective groan could probably be heard from orbit. Welcome to the galaxy, humanity. They weren't ready for us, but honestly, they never would have been.